Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
The government, it seems, is now quite determined to flush the institution of CBI down the chute. The problem is, I don't think anybody will shed a tear for the CBI. It is a rogue organization. It's been a rogue organization for quite some time now. The problem is, it's now threatening to take a much more valuable institution, the Supreme Court, with it. And why is that happening? Because Supreme Court has now got so caught up, willy-nilly, in the appointment process of the director, in the firing of the director, in the reinstating of the director, in the refiring of the director, that it does look like it is now a player in a situation where the opposition and the government will always be fighting. Now, if the opposition and the government are fighting over the CBI director's fate, then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India or his nominee, a brother judge, essentially has the casting vote. Now, should the Supreme Court have got caught in that situation? That is the larger point we raise. So, first of all, we say that Supreme Court has erred in inveigling itself into that situation and then exposing to that situation an outgoing judge who's retiring in less than 2 months, a clean judge with a fine reputation, knowing that he had said yes to a fairly prestigious assignment post-retirement from the government. This was really asking for trouble and exposing a good judge to criticism. But should the court continue doing this? Since the Jain Hawala case from Narasimha Rao's years, Supreme Court has tried to take on the role of being a corruption fighter directly. So in Jain Hawala case, Justice Verma intervened and several rules were made and several norms were set to give this CBI autonomy. Later, there were many other SITs set up, special investigating teams, out of the CBI, which had the protection of the Supreme Court of India. Now, if you look at our record, all of them have delivered zilch. Nothing has happened as a result of their investigations. In fact, in most cases, in almost all cases, including the 2G case and the coal case, the key people, 2G case, everybody's got away. Coal case, no politician, no corporate, nobody is being punished. It's only 3 IAS officers who are also not accused of any corruption. They are just accused of causing loss to the exchequer under a law which has now been repealed. So this is a record of total failure. That's why we say that CBI's record in all these Supreme Court supported and mandated investigations is comparable to our champion cricketer, Jasprit Bumrah, but only when batting, not bowling. So, Jasprit Bumrah must have among the lowest averages for even a number 11 batsman in the world. To use my friend Harsha Bhogle's lines about someone else, if you built a team of just number 11s from around the world, Jasprit Bumrah will still bat at number 11 there. So, CBI has had that kind of record. It rarely scores a run, but it carries the Supreme Court's reputation and stature with it. So people think that if Supreme Court was so closely involved with this investigation or with this anti-corruption venture, Supreme Court also failed. So this is time for judges to introspect. Should they really be getting into these situations? Because then they have very little control over what goes on. Because what is the CBI? CBI is just a club of IPS officers on deputation, drawn on deputation from the states. Most of these officers, there are exceptions, but most of these officers basically write creative charge sheets, creative FIRs at the behest of their political masters. If Indian police was in better shape, you will not have so much corruption. If police could fight corruption, then all the corrupt people will be in jail. The problem is that the police itself is so rotten in India. The same police officers come to the CBI and you expect them then to become Raja Yudhishthars or Satyavadi Harishchandras. It doesn't happen. The court has been wrong, has erred in putting so much faith in the CBI. Now, even if you look at the history of CBI SITs mandated by the court, some of the SIT chiefs actually have got good rewards from the political class for not doing their job. or for doing their job in a certain way. So time has now come for the Supreme Court to introspect. Supreme Court has to disengage from many of these things. Supreme Court is too valuable for India to continue to drift or to suffer a loss of image or stature, because ultimately when push comes to the shove, we go looking for justice to the courts, and Supreme Court sits on top of everything else. Now we remember that almost exactly 1 year back, 4 judges, senior most judges of the Supreme Court, had held an unprecedented press conference in Justice Chelmeshwar's home, and they said they were doing it to protect the institution from political interference. And they said that if we didn't do it, we thought the future generations will hold us accountable for not having stood up for the institution. 3 of those 4 judges have now retired. That is Justice Lokur, Corinne Joseph, and Chelmeshwar. But the 4th is now the Chief Justice of India. So are we heading for a situation where what the Chief Justice of India stood for and took this unprecedented step of going into public will now be reversed under his watch? I hope that this will not happen, but I do think that for this to be prevented, the following 3 things need to be done. 1, some kind of a pledge has to come from the higher judiciary that they will not take post-retirement jobs. And even for jobs which are constitutionally mandated, like say National Green Tribunal or National Human Rights Commission, there should be a transparency to how they are selected. It should not be left to the government's discretion. As we can see, the post of the head of National Green Tribunal was kept vacant for from 6 to 7 months because they were waiting for a particular Supreme Court judge to retire. And once he retired, they filled that post, they gave it to him. So that is one. The second thing, the Collegium proceedings. Now, India is a unique country where judges appoint themselves, they fire themselves, they hold themselves to account, but that process is not at all transparent. We've just had a new controversy. The Collegium had met in December, chosen 2 names. It had been completely cleared by the Collegium, the members of the Collegium, but the Chief Justice, for reasons best known to him, did not send that recommendation forward to the government. Now for those positions, 2 other names have now been chosen by a Collegium where one of the members at that point, from that point, has retired, that is Justice Lokur. This has drawn criticism, but the court doesn't explain. I bet they have good reasons for having changed their recommendation, but they don't explain it. But because they don't explain it, it leads to controversies and it leads to distrust, which India can't afford. So that is the second point. What was our first point? Our first point was say no to post-retirement jobs. Number 2, bring some transparency or accountability to the Collegium proceedings. And third one, for heaven's sake, lordships, become the boring, old, conservative people you used to be. Which means, as the Chief Justice of India, Justice Gogoi, said the other day at a book release function in the memory of former Chief Justice of India, Y.K. Sabharwal, that judges should interpret the law, and I am adding the law and constitution, in terms of their text. So judges should look at the text of law and constitution and the context of life. And that is what the judges should go back to doing. So reduce the number of PILs you admit, and please try and avoid headlines as much as possible, because it's very important for India now. What does India need most of all? From its judiciary, please, lordships, give us back our staid, boring, conservative court, which mainly talks about law, interprets the law and the constitution, and leaves the ushering in of the perfect world maybe to a wiser generation or maybe to a wiser institution.